Imagine waking up tomorrow and finding that every book you love, every film you cherish, every idea that ever challenged you has simply vanished. Not because soldiers burn them or censors erase them, but because no one cares enough to read or remember. That vision is the heartbeat of Aldous Huxley's prophecy, a future where people surrender freedom not to fear, but to pleasure. And as you swipe through your feed tonight, that prophecy is quietly unfolding. In 1932, Huxley published Brave New World, a novel that imagined a world without war or famine, yet stripped of meaning. Citizens were genetically engineered for their roles, flooded with endless entertainment, and pacified by a drug called soma. They were not chained, they were distracted. Their slavery was sweet. People will come to love their oppression, Huxley later warned, and to adore the technologies that undo their capacities to think. Decades later, Huxley revisited his own work in Brave New World Revisited and admitted he had underestimated how quickly technology and mass media could build such a world. He believed the real danger was not that governments would ban books, but that people would stop caring to read them. Control, he said, would come not by pain but by pleasure, by an endless buffet of trivial amusement. Scroll forward to today. We don't need a government issuing soma. We carry it in our pockets. The infinite feed of social media, polished photos, 30-second videos, dopamine-rich notifications, functions as a digital narcotic. It promises connection but breeds loneliness, offers information but erodes attention, sells us the illusion of significance while quietly selling our data to the highest bidder. We are not forced to consume it, we crave it. Consider what happens inside the brain. Neuroscientists have shown that each like, each unexpected new post, triggers the release of dopamine, the same neurotransmitter that fires during gambling or drug use. The result is a loop: check, reward, crave, repeat. The algorithms are designed for this. They learn what delights you, your humor, your fears, your politics, and feed it back until you can't look away. Your attention, once the most personal thing you owned, becomes a commodity. Huxley feared that people would trade truth for pleasure. He wrote of societies distracted from distraction by distraction, words that read today like a description of a never-ending scroll. We reach for our phones in elevators, in checkout lines at stoplights. We refresh before sleep and again the moment we wake. In a single decade, we have allowed an entire industry to rewire the rhythms of human thought. And yet we volunteered. There is no dictator demanding our screen time. We line up for the newest device, the next app, the next algorithmic fix. We tell ourselves it is for connection, for work, for news. But most of the time, we are simply chasing the next small surge of novelty. Pleasure, Huxley understood, can enslave more effectively than fear. Huxley imagined a tablet called soma, a perfect pleasure drug with no hangover and no consequences. Citizens of his world state swallowed it eagerly, drifting into blissful detachment. The genius of soma was not that it forced obedience, but that it erased the desire to resist. Why fight when you feel so good? Scroll forward almost a century, and we hold a more sophisticated soma in our hands, the glowing rectangle of the modern smartphone. We do not swallow it, we stare at it. Its effect is subtler than chemicals, but no less potent. Every vibration, every red notification badge, every infinite scroll is a carefully engineered invitation to stay just a little longer. Tech designers have been candid about this. Former insiders from major platforms now speak openly of persuasive design, a field built on decades of behavioral psychology. Apps exploit what scientists call variable reward schedules, the same principle that keeps gamblers glued to slot machines. You pull the digital lever by refreshing your feed. Sometimes you get something mildly interesting, sometimes something thrilling. The unpredictability is the hook. As one Silicon Valley veteran put it, you pull to refresh because it's like a slot machine. Sometimes you get a jackpot, neuroscience confirms the pull. When the brain anticipates a possible reward, it releases dopamine, a chemical messenger tied to motivation and pleasure. Unlike the steady satisfaction of a good meal or a long walk, dopamine spikes with novelty. It's the chemical of maybe, Maybe the next post, the next like, the next message will deliver that tiny jolt. We refresh not because the last hit was so amazing, but because the next one might be. This is why time collapses on social media. You open an app for a quick check and emerge 40 minutes later, unsure where the minutes went. Designers call this the infinite scroll. There is no natural stopping point, no signal that says, you've seen enough. The feed simply continues, like a river without a mouth, carrying your attention downstream. And every moment of that attention is monetized. The product is not the app. The product is you, your time, your preferences, your predictability. Advertising dollars flow toward the platforms that can keep you looking the longest. What appears to be a free service is in fact a marketplace where your mind is the currency. Huxley predicted a culture that would love its servitude. We have arrived. No one confiscates our books or bars our doors. We willingly carry the machine that tracks our movements, records our interests, and sells our desires to advertisers we will never meet. We refresh the feed that studies us in real time, shaping itself to our moods. As the saying goes, if you are not paying for the product, you are the product. The consequences reach beyond individual habit. Social scientists now link heavy social media use to higher rates of anxiety, depression, and loneliness, especially among teenagers. A major study from the University of Pennsylvania found that limiting social media to 30 minutes a day significantly reduced feelings of isolation and improved well-being. Another analysis from the Royal Society for Public Health in the UK ranks social media as more addictive than cigarettes or alcohol for many young people. The constant comparison to carefully curated images fuels envy and self-doubt. Sleep suffers. Attention spans shrink. Relationships become fragile, interrupted by the constant buzz of incoming messages. And still we scroll. Why? Because this modern soma does more than entertain. It offers an identity. Platforms promise recognition through likes and followers. Every heart and thumbs up becomes a micro-affirmation. You exist. You matter. But the affirmation is fleeting, and so the craving returns. The more we chase validation from strangers, the less we remember how to rest in the quiet dignity of being human. Huxley would not be surprised. In Brave New World, he wrote of citizens conditioned to seek pleasure and avoid pain, incapable of solitude or serious thought. Distraction was the highest good. Sound familiar? We fill every empty moment with a glance at the screen. Elevators, red lights, checkout lines, even a lull in conversation. Silence has become unbearable because silence invites reflection, and reflection might awaken a hunger that no app can satisfy. Some argue that this is simply the price of progress. Every new medium, from the printing press to television, has drawn similar warnings. But social media differs in degree and in kind. The printing press scattered information. Social media concentrates attention. Television asks you to tune in. Social media follows you everywhere. Its power lies not merely in what it shows, but in how it adapts, learning your private rhythms, predicting what will keep you hooked. And while each of us chooses to open the app, the choice is not neutral. The algorithms are invisible persuaders, shaping what we see, what we think, even what we desire. Political scientists now track how feeds create echo chambers, nudging public opinion and fueling polarization. Economists describe an attention economy in which human focus, the very core of consciousness, is the most valuable commodity on Earth. This is not the overt tyranny of Orwell's 1984. It is the subtle captivity Huxley foresaw. Think of a child growing up in this environment. Before language is fully formed, a toddler learns to swipe a screen. Before adolescence, a teenager measures worth in followers and likes. Before adulthood, a young worker carries a phone that pings with every small victory or rejection. An entire generation is being trained to seek constant stimulation, to fear boredom, to live without quiet. If humanity's strength has always been the ability to pause, to wonder, to imagine a different future, what happens when that capacity erodes? This is the digital soma. Not a pill, but a pattern, not forced but chosen, and therefore harder to escape. It promises pleasure and delivers dependency. It offers connection but extracts attention. It feels like freedom even as it narrows the soul. Pause for a moment and take inventory. When was the last time you left your phone behind for an entire day? When was the last time you allowed yourself to be bored? Can you recall a long conversation uninterrupted by a glance at a screen? These are not small questions. They reveal how deeply the new soma has seeped into daily life. Yet even here, hope glimmers. What is chosen can be unchosen. What is designed can be resisted. The first step is awareness, seeing the machine for what it is, naming the hunger it feeds, recognizing the quiet cost it demands. As Huxley warned, the danger is not that someone will seize our freedom, but that we will give it away for the comfort of endless entertainment. This awareness sets the stage for a deeper comparison, one that helps us understand why Huxley's vision feels so relevant today. For while George Orwell imagined a future of fear and censorship, Huxley imagined a future of pleasure and distraction. Both saw the risk of human extinction, not necessarily the end of our species, but the slow death of our ability to think, to choose, to be fully alive. When we speak of dystopias, another name inevitably enters the conversation: George Orwell. His classic 1984 imagines a world of absolute surveillance, a society ruled by fear, where history is rewritten daily and dissent is crushed by force. For decades, readers have debated which vision, Orwell's or Huxley's, would prove more prophetic. Would we be dominated by an all-powerful Big Brother, or seduced into submission by endless amusement? At first glance, the 21st century seems to contain both. Governments still wield surveillance technology far beyond anything Orwell imagined. Cameras line our streets. Data from our phones, credit cards, and online searches create a detailed map of our lives. Authoritarian regimes continue to use fear to silence critics. Yet for many of us living outside such regimes, daily life is not shaped by fear of the knock at the door. It is shaped by the lure of the glowing screen. Orwell feared that what we hate would destroy us. Huxley feared that what we love would. It is a subtle but profound difference. Under Orwell's vision, books are banned and speech is forbidden. Under Huxley's vision, books remain on the shelf but no one bothers to open them. Which seems closer to your own experience? How many times have you promised yourself to read a challenging book, only to find the hours lost to scrolling short clips and algorithmic news? The book is still there. Our appetite for it has been dulled. The contrast between the two writers is more than literary trivia. It is a window into our cultural moment. Orwell warned of pain as a tool of control. Huxley warned of pleasure as a tool of control. Our digital landscape suggests that pleasure, when harnessed by sophisticated technology, can be just as effective as fear in shaping behavior. Consider the attention economy. No one forces you to give away your time, yet corporations compete with almost military precision to capture it. Your emotional triggers, curiosity, outrage, desire, are the battlefield. The weapons are notifications, trending topics, and personalized feeds. Instead of the ministry of truth, we have algorithms that decide what you see and quietly hide what you do not. Instead of jackboots, we have a velvet trap of convenience and delight. Huxley foresaw this when he wrote that people will come to love their oppression. The word oppression might seem strong when applied to a phone you bought voluntarily, but look closer. How often do you feel compelled to check it, even when you would rather not? How many evenings dissolve into aimless scrolling, despite your resolve to do something else? When technology manipulates desire until resistance feels impossible, the loss of freedom is real, even if it feels good. Orwell imagined a world where truth itself would be outlawed. Huxley imagined a world where truth would be drowned in irrelevance. Today, misinformation thrives, not because someone bans the facts, but because endless noise makes it hard to care. Important stories compete with celebrity gossip and viral memes for the same sliver of attention. As Neil Postman famously observed in Amusing Ourselves to Death, Orwell feared a world where books would be burned. Huxley feared a world where no one would want to read them. Postman concluded, Huxley, not Orwell, was right. Decades later, the endless feeds of social media seem to prove him correct. This does not mean Orwell's warning is obsolete. Surveillance is real. Authoritarianism remains a threat. But the method of control that touches billions of daily lives is the one Huxley described, the gentle captivity of pleasure. Instead of a government censor, we face a market-driven system that thrives when we are too entertained to notice what we are giving away. Think of how easily the two visions merge. Every swipe generates data. Every like becomes a data point. Companies and at times governments analyze that data to predict behavior and influence choices, from the ads we see to the news we believe. The watchful eye of Big Brother is no longer confined to a single state. It is dispersed across servers and clouds, hidden behind friendly interfaces. Fear may still be a tool, but distraction is the gateway. What makes Huxley's warning so unsettling is its intimacy. We are not dragged into the system, we walk willingly. We trade depth for convenience, reflection for stimulation, freedom for comfort, and we do it smiling, phone in hand. This realization need not lead to despair. It can lead to clarity. By naming the mechanism, we begin to loosen its hold. Recognizing that pleasure can enslave us is the first step toward choosing pleasures that set us free. A book read slowly, a conversation uninterrupted, a walk taken without headphones. These simple acts become radical when the culture values speed and distraction above all. Pause for a moment and picture your own day. How often do you allow silence to stretch long enough for thought? How often do you read something demanding without the itch to check a notification? These questions are not about guilt, they are about awareness. As Huxley understood, awareness is the starting point of freedom. In the end, Orwell and Huxley are not enemies but companions in warning. Orwell shows us the danger of external force. Huxley shows us the danger of internal surrender. Our age contains elements of both, but the more insidious threat may be the one that feels like fun. Recognizing this sets the stage for the next essential movement in our reflection. If endless pleasure is the subtle path to extinction, what is the cost of letting it continue? What happens to our minds, our relationships, and even our humanity when we live forever distracted? If pleasure is the velvet chain, what happens to a culture that wears it willingly? What is the cost of endless scrolling, of days carved into tiny swipes and notifications? The damage is not always loud. It seeps in quietly like water through stone until habits harden into a way of life. The first casualty is attention. Human beings have always fought distraction, but never have we faced a machine so perfectly tuned to exploit it. Neuroscientists warn that the constant switching of tasks, checking a message here, glancing at a feed there, erodes the brain's ability to focus. Studies from Stanford and the University of London link heavy digital multitasking to reduced memory and slower cognitive processing. Where our ancestors cultivated long attention for hunting, crafting, or meditating, we now cultivate the reflex of interruption. This erosion shows itself everywhere. Books gather dust not because we dislike stories, but because we struggle to sustain the quiet concentration they require. Conversations fracture as eyes flick toward screens. Even our prayers, those moments meant to lift the soul, are punctuated by phantom vibrations in a pocket. We begin to resemble the feeds we consume, fragmented, hurried, and endlessly scrolling. The second casualty is mental health. Psychologists have documented the link between heavy social media use and rising anxiety, depression, and loneliness. In 2023, a large-scale meta-analysis found that adolescents who spend more than 3 hours a day on social platforms face significantly higher risks of depressive symptoms. Correlation is not causation, but the patterns are striking. Comparison to curated images breeds envy and self-doubt. The constant possibility of rejection, an unanswered message, a photo with too few likes, keeps the nervous system on edge. Sleep suffers, self-worth wavers, and yet the feed promises the opposite. It whispers, here is connection, here is community. But a comment is not a conversation. A like is not love. As researchers at the University of Pennsylvania observed, the more people substituted online interaction for in-person contact, the lonelier they felt. In Huxley's terms, we are distracted from distraction by distraction, lonely in the very moment we seek company. The third casualty is truth itself. When every voice competes for a sliver of attention, the loudest often wins, not the most accurate. Algorithms reward engagement, and nothing engages like outrage. False stories spread faster than verified ones because they shock, and shock is currency. Important issues drown in a sea of triviality. As Neil Postman warned decades ago, we risk becoming a culture that laughs rather than thinks, where serious discourse is replaced by endless entertainment. It is not that truth is banned, as in Orwell's nightmare. It is that truth is lost in the noise. Beyond the individual lies the toll on relationships. A dinner table where every guest checks a screen is not a gathering. It is parallel solitude. Families share a house but live in separate digital worlds. Friends sit side by side yet converse through memes instead of words. We know more about distant celebrities than about the neighbors next door. The fabric of community, woven from slow, deliberate presence, frays under the constant tug of the feet. Even our sense of time and memory begins to warp. Moments are captured for posting rather than lived for their own sake. Events not photographed feel less real, as though existence requires documentation. Memories become content. Experiences become performance. We risk forgetting how to inhabit a moment without the urge to display it. These are not small inconveniences. They strike at what makes us fully human, the ability to think deeply, love faithfully, and remember wisely. A culture that cannot sustain attention cannot sustain democracy or art or faith for long. Freedom requires citizens capable of reflection. Beauty requires minds willing to linger. Prayer requires hearts willing to be still. If those capacities wither, extinction is not merely biological, it is spiritual. Huxley foresaw this slow fade. He imagined a society that would trivialize itself until nothing serious could be taken seriously. No tyrant would need to silence the people. They would silence themselves with laughter and endless distraction. Reading his words today feels less like prophecy and more like description. And yet awareness of the danger is itself a form of hope. The same mind that drifts can awaken. The same culture that scrolls can choose to pause. The first step is to name the cost, to see clearly what constant stimulation steals from us. Consider a simple exercise. Spend an hour without your phone. At first, the silence feels heavy, even uncomfortable, but soon you notice details long ignored. The texture of light on a wall, the rhythm of your own breathing, the quiet music of thought. Attention, once fractured, begins to heal. Moments regain their depth. This is not nostalgia, it is recovery. Communities can recover too. Neighborhood dinners, shared walks, book clubs, places of worship. These are not quaint relics, but acts of resistance. They insist that presence matters more than pixels, that conversation matters more than content. They remind us that human beings are not meant to live as disembodied profiles, but as flesh and spirit in real time. Some will say such changes are impossible, that technology's tide cannot be turned. But history tells a different story. Every age has faced inventions that seemed unstoppable. The printing press, the locomotive, the electric light. Societies eventually learn to harness them rather than be consumed. The question is not whether we can live with technology, but whether we will live awake within it. This awakening begins with small, stubborn choices. Leave the phone behind for a walk. Read a chapter without checking messages. Talk to a friend face to face. These decisions may look insignificant, but they reclaim the scarce resource on which everything else depends: attention. Huxley's prophecy does not have to be our fate. The extinction he feared was not the end of the species, but the slow evaporation of what makes us fully alive. Every deliberate pause, every conversation unmediated by a screen, every moment of silent wonder pushes back against that tide. We now stand at the threshold of the final question. Having named the danger and counted the cost, how do we resist? How do we reclaim our time, our minds, and our capacity for joy? We have traced the arc of Huxley's warning from the alluring glow of the screen to the quiet erosion of attention, community, and truth. Yet prophecy is not destiny. To recognize the trap is to begin stepping out of it. If distraction is the velvet chain, deliberate presence is the key that unlocks it. The first act of resistance is awareness. You cannot reclaim what you do not notice. Pause for a day and watch your own habits with unflinching honesty. How often do you reach for the phone before you even register the impulse? How many minutes vanish in a scroll you meant to last seconds? This is not a cause for shame, it is the beginning of clarity. As Huxley himself wrote in Brave New World Revisited, only the vigilant can hope to be free. Awareness exposes the hidden bargain we make when we trade hours of life for moments of stimulation. Awareness naturally leads to boundaries. Technology will not set them for you. You must choose them yourself. Many have discovered the quiet power of a digital Sabbath, an afternoon, a day, even a weekend in which devices rest and minds recover. Others reclaim the morning, refusing to touch a screen until after a time of prayer, reading, or simple silence. These practices are not about rejecting progress. They are about reminding technology of its place. The phone is a tool, not a master. Reclaiming attention also requires deep nourishment. A mind weaned on short bursts of novelty must relearn the pleasures of slow depth. Read a long book. Listen to a symphony without multitasking. Walk without headphones until you hear the intricate music of wind and birds. Invite friends to dinner and leave the phones in another room. These acts may feel radical only because the culture has drifted so far from them. Community is another act of rebellion. The attention economy isolates. Resistance gathers. Form small groups that value presence. A reading circle, a prayer group, a neighborhood meal. In such spaces, people are not profiles or avatars. They are bodies and souls sharing breath and bread. Here conversation meanders, laughter rises, and the self is mirrored not in a screen, but in the eyes of another. Such gatherings heal what the feed fractures. We must also rethink success. Social media whispers that visibility equals value, that to matter is to be noticed. The gospel of likes seduces even the most careful heart, but lasting worth cannot be counted in clicks. It is found in faithfulness to the people and tasks entrusted to us, in the child counseled, the neighbor served, the craft patiently honed. These moments rarely trend, yet they build the world that truly lasts. For those of faith, the call goes deeper still. Silence and prayer are not mere coping strategies. They are acts of allegiance to a reality beyond the algorithm. To sit quietly before God is to declare that no feed defines you, that your life is hidden with Christ and therefore secure. This sacred pause is the opposite of extinction. It is communion with the eternal. Practical steps matter. Disable non-essential notifications. Keep the phone out of the bedroom. Schedule time to read, to create, to be bored. None of these actions is glamorous, but each is a small defiance of a system that thrives on your constant engagement. Remember, every minute you give to what truly matters is a minute the attention merchants cannot sell. Yet resistance is not merely personal. Communities, schools, and governments must also ask how to protect public attention as a common good. Some advocate for stronger privacy laws, for transparency in algorithms, for education that teaches children not only to code, but to contemplate. These efforts will vary by culture and conviction, but all share a single aim: to treat human attention not as a resource to exploit, but as a treasure to guard. As we close, picture once more the two visions that have guided our journey. Orwell feared a boot stamping on a human face. Huxley feared a population so entertained it would not care. Our world contains shades of both, but the more urgent danger for many of us is the one that feels pleasant. It is the danger of drifting into a shallow life, of forgetting how to think, to love, to pray, to wonder. But we are not powerless. Every deliberate pause is a reclamation. Every book read in silence, every conversation free of devices, every evening spent in unhurried presence is a victory. These are not small gestures. They are seeds of renewal. So take a breath. Set the phone aside. Look into the face of a friend. Watch the sky darken into night without capturing a single image. Let the moment be whole and undivided. This is how we begin to live again. Huxley once warned that humanity might perish by loving its own captivity. Let us prove him only half right. Let us love instead the difficult, radiant freedom of being fully human, awake, attentive, alive. Tonight, after you finish this talk, give yourself 1 hour without a screen. Walk, read, pray, or simply sit. Notice how the world expands when the feed is silent. Tomorrow, share a meal with someone you care about and keep every device out of reach. These are not grand revolutions, but they are the beginning of one. The quiet revolution of a mind reclaimed.